Hello and welcome to Bounty in the Comics. My name is John Trent. I'm the founder and editor-in-chief at Bounty in the Comics. Today I got a story about former Batman actor George Clooney and his recent comments that race is America's, quote, great original sin. So, the former Batman actor who played Batman in Batman and Robin back in 1997 recently claimed that race is America's, quote, great original sin. His comments came in an interview with People magazine where he first discussed what he learned from his parents when it comes to civic duty. So he said, you had to be involved. My mother and father were involved, and we were taught it is our civic duty. I remember my father saying, don't come back and look me in the eye unless you stand up to bullies and racists. I'm glad to have been raised that way. He would later add, quote, my father taught me at a very young age to pick fights with people that are more powerful than you and stick up for people who are less powerful than you or had less of a position. So, after discussing what he learned from his parents about civic duty, he then went on to talk about his outlook for the United States of America. He said, I'm always optimistic about this country. We fail a great deal, but I've been to so many countries that are really failed states, and they look to this country for leadership. And then, right after that is when he describes race as America's great original sin. He says, we come up short a lot, race being our great original sin, and clearly the one we've been the worst at, but we are in the constant process of trying to find a more perfect union. I believe in that, and if I didn't believe in it, I couldn't be here, and so I'm a great believer and an optimist about our country, but I look at it with a realistic eye towards our flaws and how the only way to get better is to face them head on. Clooney then went on to discuss the legacy he hopes to leave behind, saying, I hope that would be my legacy or my wife's and our legacy to our children, but that should be every parent's hope, that along the way there are good fights to fight. It doesn't have to cost money. It doesn't have to take that much time. It just means standing up for the things you believe in. One of the things he believes people should stand up for is equality. He says, standing up for equality, who could be against equality? That's the thing that's really hard for people to understand. We are never on the wrong side of history when you're on the side of equality. It's always been right. So that's a big, huge red flag right there. Just looking up equality on Google still gives you this definition. The state of being equal, especially in status, rights, and opportunities. So if George Clooney actually believes in equality and wants to stand up for it, he should then vacate his status as a celebrity and no longer attain that status, because there are people who don't have that status. So he is not equal with the people who do not have the status of him as a celebrity. He also has a lot more opportunities than other people as a celebrity. He has different opportunities than other people. He has different opportunities than I do. He's getting interviews with people. I'm not. He's not equal to me. So maybe he should, again, vacate that opportunity that he had. If he really, truly does believe in equality. I would wager he doesn't. Or he doesn't know what equality actually means. He's just spouting this word. He is an actor after all. His career has been based on either, one, memorizing lines that someone else came up with, or two, repeating lines that someone told him in an earpiece. That's pretty much what an actor really does. Yes, they have to get the movements and stuff, but they're not rocket scientists. They're not brain surgeons. They're not religious leaders. They're not deep philosophical thinkers for the most part. That's not to say that there aren't actors who could be all of those as well, but I haven't heard of any, and I would wager that they are few and far between. But standing for equality, there's plenty of reasons to be against that, and there are plenty of reasons, there's plenty of history saying that not always being on the side of history is the right side. You can look at Stalin and the Soviet Union, as well as Mao in China, or even more recently, Hugo Chavez in Venezuela. So this guy's just a complete, he's completely ignorant on this topic, and if he's not, he's just trying to fool you, which he also does. He tries to fool you by pretending he's another person as an actor. So Clooney's comments about race being America's original sin are not out of left field. Back in June, he actually wrote an op-ed for the Daily Beast in response to the death of George Floyd. In that op-ed, he wrote, "The anger and frustration we see playing out once again in our streets is just a reminder of how little we've grown as a country from our original sin of slavery." So there again, he's talking about original sin for America being racism, and then back in June he was saying it was slavery. In the same op-ed, he actually called for systemic change to law enforcement and criminal justice system. He wrote, "The fact that we aren't actually buying and selling other human beings anymore is not a badge of honor. We need systemic change in our law enforcement and in our criminal justice system." What that systemic change is, he doesn't say, but given what everyone else has been calling for around that same time, and even still today, is defunding the police. They believe that that is the systemic change that needs to happen. That's utterly ridiculous. As Clooney even says here, he even said earlier he's been to all these failed states, so he knows what defunding the police actually looks like. When you have all these failed states and there's no law and order, it's just run by a bunch of criminals and thugs, and it really hurts the people who live there. So it's interesting that he would kind of be insinuating that that's what he wants. While he doesn't say that, he does call for systemic change. And that everyone else that was calling for systemic change around the same time was calling for defunding the police. And then later in the op-ed, Clooney would imply that racism is America's pandemic. He wrote, "This is our pandemic. It infects all of us. And in 400 years, we've yet to find a vaccine. It seems we've stopped even looking for one. And we just try to treat the wound on an individual basis." So I think that's probably actually a really good way to deal with that, is treating people on an individual basis. If you do find a legit racist out there, then why would you not want to try and deal with that on an individual basis? So that's there. I also think that there are systemic things already happening to kind of deal with racism. One of those things is organized religion. When you have organized religion that believes that, especially with Christianity, because that's my background, you have that everyone is the child of God. We all have souls, and you have Jesus saying, "Treat your neighbor as yourself." You would want to treat people with respect, and you wouldn't try and degrade them based on their race. So there are systemic solutions already out there, and there also are individual solutions. But I don't also necessarily agree that it's a huge problem anymore. I think Morgan Freeman commented on this in a CNN interview a couple years ago. He was asked about this, and he kind of said, "Well, if it was really that big of a problem, would I be sitting here today as the celebrity that I am?" And he's kind of right there. If racism was truly that big of an issue, you wouldn't have people like Morgan Freeman in the positions that they are. You wouldn't have people from all kinds of different backgrounds in high status positions, achieving their goals, doing what they want to do in the land of the free and home of the brave. But after Clooney's op-ed in June, in July, he also announced that he was donating $500,000 to the Equal Justice Initiative. He announced that with a statement that read, "Thank you, President Trump, for making Juneteenth famous. Much like when Bull Connor made civil rights famous, my family will be donating $500,000 to the Equal Justice Initiative in honor of your heroic efforts." The Equal Justice Initiative claims it, quote, "is committed to ending mass incarceration and excessive punishment in the United States, to challenging racial and economic injustice, and to protecting basic human rights for the most vulnerable people in American society." So that's kind of where George Clooney is in his thinking, what he's been up to this past year, why he's been describing race as America's great original sin and slavery as an original sin. Slavery was ended with the 13th Amendment. You can argue that there was a war fought over it as well, but he still believes that it is a major issue in today's world. I would wager it's probably a bigger issue in Hollywood than it is in America overall, and these Hollywood people are always trying to project their own experiences onto the rest of America, which I believe is fundamentally different from Hollywood. So let me know what you think about George Clooney's comments. Leave a comment below. You've been watching Bounty in the Comics. My name is John Trent, and I will have another video for you on Monday.